Good evening, everyone. At 6 p.m, and I declare this special meeting of Council open. I'd like to welcome those members in the public gallery. The City of Swan acknowledges the traditional custodian of the region, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their continuing connection to the land, waters, community. We pay our respects to elders past and present and their descendants. And the purpose of this meeting is proposed 2023-24 differential rates and specified rates, area rates. And the disclaimer, item 2, is the terms and conditions of entry into this meeting are posted at the door as you enter. Please ensure that you have read them and abide by them during this meeting. Item 3, attendance and apologies. I have apologies from Councillor Pradovnik, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Singh, and Councillor Henderson is on a leave of absence, so we're down 4 tonight, councillors. Item 4, declaration of any financial proximity or interest affecting impartialities. Are there any from councillors or staff? Being nil, we'll go on to 5, public question time, and I'll read this out just for the recording. Questions and answers recorded in the minutes of any meeting may be summarised in accordance with Local Government Administration Regulations 1996. Questions and answers marked with an asterisk have been amended either for the purpose of summarising, that is, removing preambles, statements, or for editing purposes. And all questions received have been answered and will be provided to the person that submitted the questions, and all questions will be published in the minutes of the meeting. Are there any members of the public who wish to ask a question on the agenda item tonight? If you could please come forward, state your name and ask your questions.
My name is Madar Turner. I've got a few questions, so...
Yeah, sorry, could you just put the microphone a little bit... Thank you.
Sorry. My first question is actually about the meeting timing. So obviously budget has been worked on for the last 6 months. How come this meeting is a last-minute special meeting instead of being part of the normal monthly routine that everyone's familiar with?
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your question. The Local Government Act prescribes that the proposed differential rates could be considered from council by council from any time from the 1st of May onwards. The proposed special council meeting is obviously consistent with that time frame, this being the 2nd of May. The City has been ensuring that it tries to keep a balanced basis to its agendas, so having a special meeting specifically to consider the rates, proposed differential rates, makes perfectly logical sense. Secondly, or lastly, there is a requirement under the Local Government Act if the City's proposing to raise a differential rate which is more than 200% above the smallest or the lowest rate, you need to seek ministerial dispensation. For that to occur, it's necessary to consider proposed differential rates as early as we possibly can, because at the end of that process, the City then needs to go and put the option to the Minister. Now, the intention is still to try and have the budget adopted by the end of June. So squeezing all those dates in means that we need to have a special meeting tonight as the best time to consider it.
Okay.
You have another question?
I got lots, so you tell me when to stop. The first thing that really have a big question is that it says the draft budget for 23-24 includes an operating income of $76.3 million. The annual report from FY22, that one, indicates that the annual or the operational income was $204 million. So what happened in a year that it's less than half?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you. I'm not aware of which piece of the puzzle you're trying to read from. However, if you go to part B of the, which is the attachment to the meeting tonight, you'd see the total income for the City proposed is $224 million. I'm not sure where you have the figure of.
That was the second point in the summary.
So the second point in the summary says operating income of 76 million and operating expenses. So the operating income is the income that you have then from own sources, the balance of which need to be raised from rates. So we look then as a rate, the way the numbers work, you start with what you generate yourself, and then the balance of that is what needs to be raised as a generation from rates. So if I come back then to the attachment and you look there, you'll see a total of 148 million raised from rate. When you add the two numbers together, you then come to your 224 million.
Okay,
Now
so
you find the reference to rates then of 148 million is no different to it's consistent in quantum to the estimates for 22-23. So $141 million in 22-23 going up to $148 million this year.
So in this case, operating income is not the same as operational income.
Mr. CEO.
So the operating income referred to there is the piece that you're able to generate yourself through your own operations, fees, charges, and other components in there. The total operating income, which is referred to as total income, is the $224 million.
Okay.
I'm happy to show you if you have a look at attachment B, I'm happy to show you that afterwards how all the numbers come together.
Yes, I would love to see that. I will admit that it took me a long time to sift through it to understand what you're trying to do. I made myself a little Excel spreadsheet to try and figure it out. So correct me if I got it wrong. The rate per dollar is going down, but the minimum rates are going up.
Mr. CEO.
That's correct. So as with this is a revaluation year, so the Valuer General has gone through and assessed all of the excuse me, horse in the throat tonight, assessed all the property values for every property across the city. So in order to raise, say, the same or more rates from your property, as your property value goes up, the rate in the dollar we charge goes down. A times B gives you the total. Now your average total rate is increasing. So the average total rate, even though the rate in dollar goes down, is still going up. Now the quantum by which it's going up is also the same quantum that we propose to move the minimum rate.
Yes. So, because it seems to me that let's say residential rate is going down by 13%, but the minimum is going consistently up by 5%, 3%, and 3%. So correct me if, again, I'm not a numbers person, but does it not mean that the people that have bigger properties that are far away from the minimum will end up paying a little bit, less until the new rates come in, and then everyone pays a bit more, except for the lower income that will pay necessarily more. So you're in a way encouraging the higher value property. So if you have a small property for your own house, you will pay more because you only come to the minimum. Whereas if you have 300 properties waiting to be sold, you will only get a decrease.
Did you understand the question?
There's a lot in that, but the simple answer is no.
Okay.
The short answer is no. If you have a look at the graph we're provided on page 18 of the agenda, which shows the average rate comparison, we'll probably bring it up on the screen if we can.
It's the one with the columns blue and green and
across
orange.
each suburb. You will see that there is not one, keep going down, keep going, so on there. You will see across each suburb, there are different property sizes and therefore different average rates.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can also see in that same graph the movement from this year to the proposed rates for next year. There's variance across the lot, but there's not significant variance. The smaller properties pay less in rates, but not necessarily smaller in size. So it's smaller in terms of what the Valuer General has assessed as the gross rental value of your property. So that's the key, the gross rental value of your property. Again, the minimum sits in this mix below that $1,000 part that's shown there for Whiteman. So there's a group of properties, approximately 10% of the total of our 60,000 properties, that will pay a sum below that. And they're the ones where we've set the benchmark for the minimum.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with the number of properties you've got. nor necessarily the size of the land. It's all to do with the size of the dwelling on it and the gross rental value of that dwelling.
Yes.
But you could have two similar sized, say 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in a suburb, but because the overall property values are different in each suburb, they will pay different quantum of rates.
Yes, that makes sense. But usually the price kind of goes with the size. So I'll ask a slightly different question, because by the final table you had at the end, you got to 139 million that will be raised by the rates at FY24.
149 million, I think it is, in total.
Okay.
Because they're going through the chair. You've got the UV rates, you've got the special area rates, you've got all the discounts. All of those need to be aggregated into the mix.
Which is, as you said, about the same in kind of the ballpark as you had previous year. The
Indeed.
FY22 was 140. So if all you're doing is making the adjustment for the new valuation, where's the 3.25 raise? That's I failed to find that in the numbers. I'm sorry.
Okay, so it's through.
Did you understand that?
Yeah, it's through the chair. So the proposed rate increase, which is we're saying it's 3.75 tonight, which is
Okay.
to
Yesterday it was 3.25.
to incorporate additional charges which Western Power have proposed they want to raise on the city and every single householder across the Southwest network. So that is part of the overall aggregate income. You look at the total quantum we raised last year is 140, but we're going to 148 this year. So some of that 148 million is growth. There's slightly more properties in the mix. The other difference in that component is what the increase generates for us. But I said, I'm happy to sit down after the meeting if you'd like and just explain how the numbers come together, if that's going to assist you.
Yes, because I think for the layperson reading it, it does not add up. But I'll have a quick look at my notes, but I think I will leave you guys alone. Yeah, I'll ask the rest of the question you at the end.
All right.
Thank you
Okay.
very much for listening and answering.
I do, through the chair. I remember you asking similar questions at the electors meeting, so
Yes,
I congratulate you for taking interest in the city's finances.
thank you.
Thank you very much. That takes us to the next item on the councillor, on the run sheet. Councillors, item 6, deputations have been nil registered. Item 7, members' questions. None were provided, but I ask now, do any councillors have any questions on the subject matter for tonight's meeting? Being no questions, I'll move to item 8, leave of absence, and I've received 2 this evening. The first one from Councillor Congdon, who's requesting leave from the 9th of May to the 10th of May inclusive this year, and also from the 23rd of July to the 28th of July this year, and a further request for leave from Councillor Parry from the 9th of May to the 11th of May inclusive this year. I need a motion, councillors. Move Councillor McCulloch, seconded Councillor Jones. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, then I declare those leaves carried. That now takes us to part B of the agenda. And the only item on the agenda, councillors, is the item 1.1, proposed 2023-24 differential rates and specified area rate.
Move the item.
You're moving the officer's amended recommendation.
Yes, the alternate officer's recommendation.
Thank
Page
you.
5.
Have a seconder, Councillor Parry. I believe there is someone against. You wish to debate that, Councillor? Okay. Then I'll move to you, Councillor Congdon, as the
I'll
mover.
reserve to the end.
Thank you. Councillor Parry as the seconder. You don't wish to debate it. Councillor Catalano, you have 5 minutes for your debate. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I've thought long and hard about the proposed rates in the dollar for this year in particular. I understand and I acknowledge and I see the need for the city to bring in rates to function. However, given that this year there has been in the gross rental value of properties, I cannot in all good conscience endorse the proposed rate in the dollar of proposed rate in the dollar that with the 3.75% increase. Without going into technicalities, effectively that is with the taking into account the increase in GRV and the changes to the rate in the dollar, that is what the increase will be. But the impact of that is going to have financial implications for thousands of households across the city. And my estimation is that many of these households, particularly in the suburbs I'm going to be talking about, will experience a much greater percentage increase than 3.75 because of the GRV increase. My estimation is that in Averley and Ellenbrook, they'll see a between 9 to 10% increase in the amount of rates that they'll be paying. In Brigadoon, a 12% increase in the amount of rates they'll be paying. Bullsbrook, a 9 to 10% increase in the amount of rates they'll be paying. Middle Swan, a 7% increase. Stratton, a 9% increase. Brabham, 6%. And Bennett Springs, 5%. And that's fairly conservative because that was based on the original 3.25% increase. So that will have gone up. In this year, many households can least afford these kind of increases. And these increases affect predominantly families in the newer suburbs with young children and high mortgages. We know that there has been and will probably continue to be a rise in interest rates. And we know that the cost of living expenses keep on rising. This is going to put many of those families on struggle street. Furthermore, the increase in the minimum rate in the minimum rate levied on households, which is going to increase from $890 for those ones with the minimum rate to $938. And as we've heard tonight, that's 10% of our ratepayers or of our rating households. That means that 10% of rateable properties who have the lowest property values will have to pay more. This again is going to put enormous pressure on those people who will already be experiencing financial hardship in this current climate. I don't believe there has been enough and close enough scrutiny of operational and capital expenditure, and I believe that savings can still be made. There are expenses in the draft budget that I do not agree with.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
Therefore, I cannot, in all good conscience tonight, support this rate in the dollar, which is effectively a rate increase of, well, it is a rate increase, as I've explained, of anywhere between 10% to 5% for those properties that experienced an increase in their gross rental value above 15%, that is actually going to put enormous pressure on our ratepayers who can least afford it this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You wish to enter the debate, Councillor? You're speaking against or for the motion? Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I speak before you tonight as a person with the following qualifications: a Bachelor of Commerce in Accounting, an Exec Masters in Business Administration, postgraduate qualification in local government. I speak before you as a person with experience in over 20 budgets of local government. But I agree, rate setting when there's been a review of the GRV is confusing. It's confusing local government budgets. It's not like normal businesses. And we heard questions tonight from a member of the public, and we've heard questions or comments from Councillor Catalano that quite clearly indicate it is confusing. I was critical of the budget last year. There was things that I thought was lacking, but I'll be the first one that will stand up tonight and say it has been a huge improvement and increase in what we've done. Service plans. We've actually had business cases for the FTEs. We're being more open and transparent. This is a huge step forward. So us as councillors can see what those costs of services are. I'll pick on libraries because I remember it. I know in our service plan it says it costs us net cost 7.1 million, 53 staff, and we provide 1,300 programs. We get that information now. It's up to us what we do with it. But councillors, we're not setting the budget tonight. We're not setting the rates tonight. We're going out to advertising. Now, we've gone through 3 workshops. I think I've probably asked the most amount of questions and sent a lot of email questions to our CEO, and I've got responses on every one of them. And most times I can't go back with another question because he's answered my questions. Councillors, we've dropped the amount of money we're spending on capital. We've looked at operating. I don't agree with everything, but 99% I do agree with. Councillors, if you want to reduce the rates that you're going to go out and advertise, start cutting services. However, councillors, don't make me go through the last 12 months and see which councillors voted every month or every second month to increase services. Because when you made those decisions, this is the reason why we've got this increase. Now, I congratulate staff for having a 3.25% increase. However, at the end of the last minute, our state government through Western Power is going to increase the charges for street lighting. So there's another 0.5%. And I've been in contact with the CEO to say what happens if they aren't allowed to put those increases up. We can set the budget for a reduced amount, but we have to go out and advertise the higher amount. Councillors, this is a very efficient budget in this type of climate. Rates did go up today, another 0.25%. So we know it's going up. As a full-time councillor that lives off $34,000 a year and my wife's salary, I, for one, know all too well about increasing costs and having to tell my kids no. But it's also a balancing act. It's a balancing act of being responsible to every one of our ratepayers out there. And I know in my ward, where the GRV has gone up more, that the increase will be more than 3.25%. But you try and explain to anybody, and I remind councillors 3 years ago, there was a 0% rate increase. There was a reval there, and you tell everyone your rates aren't going up.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
Your rates aren't going up. You heard, because I wasn't on council there, you heard from every one of those people, more than likely, where the rates went up. But the other half, where the rates went down, you didn't hear anything from them. Councillors, if people don't like their revalue in the GRV, there is a process to go through, and that's the process to go through. But tonight, we are going out for advertising. We're not adopting the rate. We're not adopting the budget. We need to get community consultation and tell us what we want. But rest assured, councillors, if you want to reduce that increase, I'm quite happy to be the slash and burn king around this table and start slashing projects. But don't be disappointed on the projects I slash, because that's $5.5 million or $5 million you need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. Speaker against the recommendation. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Howard, thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I don't support this rate increase. It's just going to add further stress to households. it's very difficult for everybody out there. With the cost of living pressures, it's difficult for us as a city to operate under those conditions, but I don't think we've done enough. I think we can probably make further savings. Maybe we do need a slash and burn king to come through and slash out what we don't need, concentrate on the services that we do need to provide. I think that we shouldn't be advertising this. We should be looking deeper to see if we can find more costs that can be offset through our budget. Rates increases are going up. A mortgage of $500,000 a year, which I don't think is far stretched for many households, is looking at it, or was before today, looking at an $80 a month increase. We don't need to add to this distress. We can alleviate some of it this time around. So no, I won't be supporting it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against? Question, Councillor Bowman.
You, Mr Mayor, to the CEO. Has any councillors come to you in the 3 months of the budget workshop to suggest any cuts in operational? And if so, were they significant amounts of, let's say, 100,000 or plus?
Mr CEO.
I suppose the short answer is no.
I'll ask again, councillors, any other speakers for or against? You have a question, Councillor
Just a
Howard?
question. Thank you through you to the CEO, if that's possible, please. Mr CEO, is it likely that councillors could still at this point come to you with suggestions for the budget to arrange some changes there?
Mr CEO.
Thank you, and through the chair. Yes, of course, the service plan, which we presented to you, outlined the cost of every single service. But as we took to the workshop, when we asked that question about those service levels, etc., that no one has raised at that time the proposal to reduce any level of service currently provided.
Any other speakers, councillors? Then Councillor Congdon, you have a right to reply of 5 minutes if you need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I probably don't need 5 minutes. Councillor Bowman did a pretty good job in explaining the current position. And like you, I think a lot of us went through the entire process, and it was a very, very, very good budget. It was very transparent, and it delivered a lot of what had been missing in previous years. Interesting for me is that we went through a zero rate increase year one, and that actually ended up being an increase for some and a decrease for others. We then went to 2 subsequent years of a zero increase, which meant everything stayed the same. So if we were to have a look at those who are in the negative, 2, they didn't pay an increase. They had another further 2 years of not paying any increases whatsoever, and conversely the other way. It's interesting that this item has to go to advertising to seek comment from the public in relation to where we go. But not everyone's going to be happy, full stop. It's just the nature of the beast. Residents aren't happy. But I have to tell you, the number of residents that have contacted myself over the last 12 months, talking about our operations area, particularly in parks and gardens, streetscape, playgrounds, and the answer I give them is, well, if we don't have the money to do it, then how are we going to do and make those improvements that you're seeking? When you sit down and talk to the ratepayers, the residents, about the issues, they acknowledge the fact that they've been through a period of no increases. And whilst the federal government, or in particular the people setting our interest rates, have jumped up another 0.25 today, I don't know that we can actively add that into the fray of where we are with council rates. The GRV in itself is a problem, as we know, and that's an outdated system that needs to be rectified as well. Everybody around this table would understand that it delivers a nonsensical arrangement of where a gross rental in the climate we're in is presenting a problem about rate increases. Where else on the planet do you have this type of arrangement? But sadly, we have it. I think if you have a look at where we're going to go with these rate increases, if we're talking $100, an increase for some, 48 for others, 54 for others in relation to the new proposed electricity costs. And didn't that come out of the blue, councillors? That was very nice of the state government to say on the eve of a council meeting to go ahead, or last Friday it was, to go ahead and we're looking at setting our advertised rates. Is that here's a not healthy slap of nearly $800,000 for you to deal with. Some authorities are in a world of pain over this, and we could well be at some stage as well. So I urge you to let it go to advertising, let it go and do its thing. Let's see what comes back from it. And if our majority of our residents, and I'm talking about a significant majority of our residents, are upset with this, then the suggested slash and burn might be the way to go. But I wouldn't certainly support, I'll say it now, slash and burn on operational costs, because it'll end up back exactly where we are now. What have you done to my parks and gardens? What have you done to my playgrounds? What have you done to the streetscape? So the only other thing to slash and burn is talking about capital expenditure on things that we councillors in this room went through and put on the budget, because this is what our community have asked us for. So I urge you to support the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. That now ends the debate. I'll be putting the amended officer's recommendation as moved. Those in favour? Of Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Congdon, myself, Councillor Parry, Councillor Zanino and Councillor McCulloch, which is 7. Those against were Councillor Howlett, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Knight, Councillor Richardson, which is 4. The motion is carried. That concludes all items on the agenda tonight, councillors. I thank you for your attendance, and I also thank the young lady from the public gallery for coming and asking those questions, and the CEO will be happy to talk to you further now. I'll close the meeting at 6:31. Thank you.
Yes.